Hi, my name is CKEN and I'm the author of Blue Mountain Myths. I'm doing another entry today, and today's entry has to do with fraud and what is going on, which makes up part of C3's history. Historically, in the United States, with a population of close to 250 or 300 million people, on a relatively small piece of land, fraud was committed regularly. In Canada, it was not heard of. They had a different system of existence. When Hannah did Kanata Means Wings discovery in 2013, that fraud, the money, the fraudsters foreign that came in, took it and built something that's a lethal medical device. Now that is very, very important in understanding how certain things progressed in C3. So my understanding is there was someone very, very wealthy in the United States who probably did do acts of fraud. I think in the United States, something like that was needed. In the history of Canadian banking, never has fraud once been committed. But because Canada didn't have any fraud, what they did was they brought in viewing facilities and they set up banks inside these viewing facilities, which are large tracts of land that they are able to manipulate accounts. So for example, I got a check from Virgin Mobile. Here is the check. It is 30 something. Because my dilemma with CIBC, I closed the account. So I took the check to Money Mart. Now these little pockets communicate. They said, don't cash the check. It's fine. So I went back to CIBC. Now the gentleman had given me a 3-week grace period. They entered the check in. And then they gave me back the check and said, sorry, we can't process it. Now, when we think of fraud, again, these are very, very important components. When you can't process it, I said, but it already went through the CIBC account. They said, no, there's no sign of it. So right there, that became an issue. That means this area, again, may be a viewing facility. So we went through the Europeans, we went through the Indians, and now it's the Chinese turn to make revenue. But is this fraud local? No, it's actually global, and diaspora is famous for this. So in Turkey, for example, if you have gold bracelets, they will monopolize an area, give one price, really cheap, and if you go to any of the other jewelers, they will do the same type of fraud. Continuous levels of fraud. It has nothing to do with one particular community. It's just what they are doing in general. So for example, even today, that viewing facility, that chip is all fraud. Why? Because anytime someone makes money, they can easily throw them into that viewing facility, and every time he cashes a check at the bank, they're able to clear any transactions of that thing because these doctors don't want a headache if the person decides to sue the medical commission. This is how ugly this really is. So when we think of fraud, we don't want fraud at all. But in the early 1900s, right after what really brewed World War II, was they were pushing morality and Christian, and it backfired so damn bad that they had to create a secondary industries of fraud in most countries. So the fraud actually supports it. But when it becomes not fraud now, but lethal suppression of all types of communities except certain little cliques at the top, it becomes an issue. Prophet Hannah doesn't care. She's older, she's injured, she's just chronicling everything that is going on. There's a bigger issue here. It's the fact that these male-dominant men didn't want to listen to a woman. Like when we look at those Lebanese guys dancing, that is what is kind of managing at the top level right now. When we think of management of the globe, and this is the biggest highlight, it should not be anything other than something belonging to a crown at the management level. When we think of the armies they also do fraud. It's not the United States Army, it's the Russians, it's the Chinese, it's every single community. In fact, if you don't do fraud now, whatever. So what's happening is there is that immense crushing to generate a gap of about close to 3,000 years between poor and rich. The Chinese are telling Hannah they don't want to work anymore. Why should they? The Indians are saying that too. Why? When they can do some IT technology and fuck up everybody. They just sit there now playing on Videotrons. Iran's saying the same thing. A lot of United States soldiers lost their lives. It's really, really not funny. So now the medical doctors, part of C3's history, they don't want to work either. We give our lives and we get tormented and tortured. Why should we work? We don't want to work either. So nobody wants to work, but it's because we don't have the resources and the capacity to create an ethical system of existence. Now, and this is where Hannah comes in. Again, Hannah could die tomorrow. She was not, she was declared dead in 2019. She's working injured now. She's saying, men, are you sure you don't want to look at the exhibit? What did the men do? They picked some brown chick, put some frills on it, had her pussy walk up and down with feathers. Good for her. Or some, whoever, some blondie, but she's not really blonde, she's painted. These are the kind of things that Prophet Hannah went through, the real authentic version. And they're trying to be orderly and proper, and they're trying to create an ethical system. There's no ethical with these guys at this particular time. It's a declaration of war, because with that chip, the security industry has backfired, because they're just gonna go in, look at what codes you're punching in, and exist. They're going to manipulate how many times you have intercourse, and if you've reached the limit as gay James Bond, you are a dead woman. They're going to manipulate anything, reproductive controls. They're going to want dumb women to produce children because they want to maintain that weaponry industry. Do you see where Prophet Hannah's headed with this? This is the struggle since 2003. She utilized in a fluke story the devil's tongue, which her brother brought out. Now, it seems like a lot, but we don't care. Our objective is just to really push the real Evolve exhibit, at least to hear it out, because you see all this fraud. Now, it's good for the people at the top who are murdering babies and making themselves taller, painting their skins whiter, and as they manipulate bank systems and are generating fraud in Canada, which is not heard of in our banking system ever before. But these are the type of things that can occur. It's a real problem when man and woman have separated to the point that a woman is just a reproductive means. She's going to be something that is a slave to a man, that she has to lie on her back with her legs open, produce X amount of children, exactly like a farm agriculture animal. This is the challenges we have. Now, if this person sat here and just bitched about it, it'd be one thing. But since 2008, we've been trying to produce the real Evolve exhibit. Who is stopping us? Asians, the Indians, the Europeans. If you notice, all foreign. Poor Americans lost their lives. Why? Because the decoys of media who supported India backfired on the armies. So this is where we are today. Another entry. No matter how many auditors you bring into CIBC Bank at this particular time, it's another declaration of war, because they can manipulate the head now. So everything we do is controlled like an animal. We don't want this type of control. In 100 years from now, you can talk about, in 100 years from now, you can talk about New World Order, make it entertainment. But at the realistic level, you have picked up gossip from certain communities saying, everything is fraud, it's our turn for fraud. It doesn't work like that. It's the ethics and everything like that. So that is where we are today. Another entry. Please support by purchasing. on Balboa Press, Blue Mountain Mist, which I'm the authentic, and the last name is ILKIN. It's the entry year 2014. And again, we are trying to finish because it's a regulatory thing. When nobody wanted to work on Earth,